Good evening. My name is Sergeant Labril May, and today I will be conducting individual training on identifying terrain features on a military map. I will be using and referencing 071-Charlie Oscar Mike-1001. At the end of this course, you will be able to identify the 10 terrain features on a military map, which are 5 majors, 3 minors, and 2 supplementary. Also, at the end of this course, you will practice, and through this course, I will show you examples on how to identify, and then you will be assessed. After assessment, if anybody fail, they will be retrained and be reassessed. I will collect all my materials and we will do an AAR. And that will conclude my presentation on identifying a terrain feature. And I will close up the site. So, jumping right into it. Conditions. You are a member of a squad or team in a field environment and have been identified and directed to identify terrain features on a map. You have been given a 1 to 50,000 scale military map. Standards. Identify the 5 major, the 3 minor, and the 2 supplementary features on the map. The special conditions are that, unfortunately, we weren't able to sit in residential course amongst one another, but we had to adjust and work virtually from home. The safety risks are low because we are in a home environment, but we're going to be mindful of household material, pets, cords, outlets, and plugs, or any other things that can possibly cause us harm or injury. All right, to jump right into it, we're going to identify the 5 major terrain features. All right, the first one will be a hill. A hill is an area off the ground. It's basically high ground. The way you identify a hill, you will see circles within circles, while the smallest circle within the circles is the top of the hill, which is shown here. Circles within circle, smallest circle is the top of the hill. Next, we will identify a saddle. A saddle is a dip or low point between 2 areas of higher ground. A saddle is normally represented as an hourglass shape. Also, a saddle can be 2 hills connected with a low, but has the dip. The way that I remember a saddle is thinking of a horse saddle, the front end of the horse and the back end of the horse, but in the middle of the horse, it dips low where you put the saddle. So this is an example of a saddle, 2 hills connected, top of the hills, and that's the dip. Top of the hills, that's the dip. That's where you put the saddle, front end, back end of horse. All right, next will be a valley. A valley, what's the difference? It consists of water, and water is identified as blue. It's blue, as you can see, blue on the map. A valley is a stretched out groove in the land, usually formed by streams or rivers. A valley begins with high ground on 3 sides and usually has a course of running water through it. Contour lines forming a valley are either U or V shaped. The closed end of contour lines, U or V, always points upstream or toward the higher ground. This is the valley. V shape. You can see the blue water. That's the end of the valley, which is pointing upstream or towards higher ground. Upstream or towards higher ground. Next will be a ridge. A ridge is a sloping line of high ground. If you are standing on the center line of a ridge, you will normally have low ground in 3 directions and high ground in 1 direction, with varying degrees of slope. Contour lines forming ridge tend to be U-shaped or V-shaped. Close end of the contour line points away from the high ground. This is an example of a ridge. Next, we will identify a depression on a military map. A depression is a low point in the ground or a sinkhole. On maps, depressions are represented by close contour lines that have tick marks pointing toward low ground. Basically, a hole in the ground is a depression, circular with the tick marks inside pointing down. And this is an example of a depression. The tick marks going pointing down. You can see the whole depression. Next, we will be identifying the 3 minor terrain features on a military map: a draw, a spur, and a cliff. A draw is a stream course that is less developed than a map. In a draw, there is essentially no level ground and therefore little or no maneuver room within its confines. The contour lines depicting a draw are U-shaped or V-shaped, pointing towards higher ground. Okay. Just like the valley, a draw will have water. Maybe not as much water, but like I said, it'll be identified blue on the map. And this is an example of a draw. Right there. And with crossing draws, you might want to be careful because your foot could get stuck in between rocks and you might, twist your ankle, twist your knee up. Next is a spur. A spur is a short, continuous, sloping line of higher ground, normally jutting out from the side of the ridge. A spur is often formed by 2 roughly parallel streams cutting draws down the side of a ridge. The ground will slope down in 3 directions and up in 1. Contour lines on a map depict a spur with the U or V pointing away from the ground. And here it is. Contour line pointing up or away from the ground. Like an M right there. Next will be a cliff. A cliff is a vertical or near vertical feature. It is an abrupt change of the land when a slope is so steep that the contour lines converge into one carrying contour or contours. This last contour line has tick marks pointing toward lower ground. Cliffs are also shown by contour lines very close together and in some instances touching each other. And here are 2 examples of a cliff. Example A, example B. Next, we will identify the 2 supplementary terrain features on the map. A cut in the field. Note, A cut is a man-made feature resulting from the cutting through, keyword, cutting through raised ground, usually to form a level bed for a road or railroad track. The contour lines extends the length of the cut and has tick marks that extend from the cut line to the road bed, if the map scale permits this level of detail. A field, note. A field is a man-made feature resulting from filling a lower area, usually to form a level bed for a road or a railroad track. So the difference between a cut and a fill is a cut is cutting through raised ground, while a fill is filling a low area. This contour line extends the length of the filled area and has tick marks that point toward lower ground. If the map scale permits, the length of the filled ticks marks are drawn to scale and extend from the baseline of the field symbols. As you can see here, you have a field with the tick marks on the outside and cut with the tick marks on the inside. These are man-made terrain features. We have roads or railroad tracks going through, you know. Okay. So what did we just do? We just covered the 10 terrain features on the military map. Now I'm going to show you some examples of some terrain features. Also, you can go back and review 071-Charlie Oscar Mike-1001 if you want to go back over and reference and look through it. But I'm going to show you some examples here on my map, which you all will have maps. If we was in a residential course, it will already be on your desk waiting for you. Okay. Here we have a draw. You see the water and the V shape where it ends. Okay. And we have a depression right here. A depression. This is a sand pit. And you know, sand pits usually are basically a hole in the ground. Okay. So with this course, we use a military map with 100 to 50,000 scale. Also, we have used a military base, actually an Air Force base in the Florida, the Eglin Air Force Base here in Florida. What we have in common? The residential course we have been in Florida. Okay. Like I said, water is usually identified as blue. Okay. And everything green here is, you know, just land and whatnot. Okay. And those are examples. Okay. So why is it important that we conduct individual training on identifying terrain features? Well, one, it can save our life. Two, it can save time. And three, it's a part of being a soldier. It's part of land navigation. Most of us are familiar, if not some, are familiar with the Blue Force Tracker. A lot of us may depend on the Blue Force Tracker as a navigation system, but learning land navigation is essential as well, because we might not have that all the time, and we might have to leave the vehicle because it was destroyed or ran out of gas or whatever the case may be. Identifying terrain features can save your life and save your time, energy, and resources. We only have so much limited supply of water that we carry, limited supply of MREs. So being able to identify this sand pit, being able to say, hey, let's go this way rather than that way. It's I think I would rather cross a draw than cross 100 or 60 feet deep depression. It's like how I'm going to get down, how I'm going to get out. So also, you don't want to run into, if you're out, you have to be back at a certain time. You want to use that daylight because depending on the weather change and your gear, it can be dangerous for you and detrimental. So that's why it is important to be able to identify terrain features on the military map. So through the assessment of the training, at this time, I would say take this time to identify and circle the 10 terrain features on the military map. As y'all practice, I'll go around and make sure that everyone's, up to speed and identifying correctly. Then I will give you all an assessment. I will record the assessment. I will determine your proficiency on it. If anyone fails, as I stated before in class, you will be retrained and reassessed. So therefore, I'll retrain and evaluate you guys. Then I will collect everything. Once everybody was retrained, everything was done, I will give it to my leadership to report my assessment from my individual training that I conducted on identifying terrain features on the military map. I will also collect all my maps and my material that I had issued out before you all came into class. Now I will conduct the AAR. Okay. Conduct AAR. So what was supposed to happen? Today I was supposed to conduct individual training on terrain features, identifying the terrain features on the military map. What actually happened? What actually happened was I identified the 5 major, the 3 minor, and the 2 supplementaries. I also reviewed, I gave you examples. I let you all work on your own, and I assessed, I retrained, collected my materials, and I reported. What went right? We got through the course, and we identified all 10. What went wrong? COVID-19. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do this course at residential, but home. So I'll do a final inspection before this class is over, and I'll be closing out my site, and that'll be it for my CIT on identifying terrain features on a military map. Thank you.